All right. I believe we are live. Just going to check the audios real quick before we jump in and get started. I'm also going to stream on IG. So let me get that set up. Let's see. Okay. I think audio looks good. IG looks good. Okay. Uh, I think we are all set to start. Thanks for folks joining in. I'm starting these 30-minute Ask Me Anything or AMA sessions to get myself into a more reoccurring habit of answering questions that I get because I know that I'm not doing a really good job of that. So we're going to jump in. There are two forms, maybe some housekeeping real quick. There is, where did I put it actually? Oh, here it is. A way to send questions ahead of time that I'm going to post in this link. And if you guys are so inclined, I do encourage folks to submit questions or just ask them live. So here's the first one. Let me post it here, but also let me post it in this thing here. Okay, cool. So folks who are IG that can't see it, if you go to briankfung.com/AMA, you can submit questions and then I'll answer them on the next live stream. But if you're watching the live stream, definitely ask questions live. Otherwise, I already have a list of questions that folks have submitted, and I'm just gonna answer questions for the next 30 minutes. See how many we can get through. So that's the first thing. Let's go ahead and start with the first question that I got. That is, if you guys said your name in the forums, I will definitely say your name. But if you didn't, I'm not going to say your name. So the first question was submitted by Paul. And his question was, given your here, let me actually post it in here so you can see. Maybe that would be helpful so you can see what type of question I'm answering. And sorry to the folks on IG, because you're not going to be able to see it. At some point, I'll get this going on IG. But if you're on IG, oh, that looks terrible. That's a really ugly font. I wish I can change that. If you're on IG, you can watch the live stream on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. All right, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to change this font, I don't think. Let's just go and get started. All right, so the question is, given your path and vantage point with where health IT is trending, what advice would you give to an epic analyst with a clinical background that wanted to upskill and branch out in the tech world? We can probably spend a while on this, and I think I'll try to be as succinct as possible with this question. Health IT is the most obvious thing is that it's going like every other industry, going in the way of artificial intelligence or AI. Everything you see, everyone that I know is working on some form of AI. So I think the very first pragmatic thing to think about when it comes to upskilling is just basically learning more about AI. And I think there's different forms of that. One is just having a general foundational understanding. But I think the more important thing, especially if you're already in the informatics or IT world, which you are, is diving just a little bit deeper into the models themselves. So not just knowing that like AI can learn things, but how do they learn things? Being familiar with basic regression models, linear, logistic regression, deep learning models, where it's like the CNNs or RNNs or transformers. And then more recently, the generative AI space, which is also very prevalent in health IT right now. But learning more about that level of detail and more so how it works. And a great recommendation I have there in doing that, that's much more structured, is Andrew Ng's machine learning specialization course on Coursera. I believe it's free and it dives pretty deep into the nuance of how these things actually work. It's a little bit more technical in terms of the math, but that's like the very first thing I would suggest. The second thing I would suggest, aside from the AI hype, is something that I feel pretty passionate about is in health IT, not just nationally, but around the world, the fire standard is blowing up everywhere. It's been blowing up for a while, but it's become much more important because of the regulations that have put it on the radar for many different companies around the globe. So I think maybe that would be the shortest, succinct answer to your question, which is one, if you want to upskill and branch out, learn about AI, but learn more deeper. Andrew Ng's courses are great for that. The second thing is learning more about fire because everything is going to be connected in our world, or at least that's the way it's trending. And fire will 100% set you apart. It's much more technical in nature, but I think it's a very worthwhile investment if you want to branch out and stay current with the health IT industry. All right. Thanks, Paul, for that question. I'm going to move on to the next one. And this one's from Carrie, and Carrie has two questions. Um, this one looks a bit more challenging to answer. Let me paste them in the thing so people can see it. So Carrie has two questions. Let me add it. And the first question is, with the closing of indie pharmacies, what can pharmacists do to build innovative practices? So I'll give a disclaimer here in that I feel as though over the years, and probably for even the last 10 years, I've been further removed from the world of pharmacy, even though obviously I'm a pharmacist, because I do less and less like pharmacy specific things. So especially indie pharmacies. So I have a bit of a knowledge gap in this area. But if we were to remove that aspect and just think more about what can pharmacists do to build innovative practices, um, maybe another disclaimer: I'm not really in the business of pharmacy, so I don't know how helpful the answer may be. But I would think going along the other question, which is the technology around generative AI, which really was put on the map by OpenAI's ChatGPT in what was it, November 2022 or December 2022. Um, that is one of the most transformational technologies. I don't know in how long, but it's been a very long time. And I think if you want to talk about innovation, the amount of things generative AI can do for you in your practice across multiple industries, be it from like automating different things, reasoning about certain things, even coding. It's almost like I like to think about it, especially in the hands of healthcare people. It's like your personal software engineer that can do a lot of coding stuff for you. I think pharmacists who are in this business, be it indie or pharmacists who are doing business in general, if you're not taking advantage of generative AI tools, and it's not just ChatGPT, there's a lot of other ones out there. There's image generators, video generators, text generators, and a whole slew of things. If you're not taking advantage of that, then I don't think that you're really taking advantage of the technology that we have at our hands. So I think that's one of the most important things when it comes to pharmacists building innovative practices. The second question, actually, you know what, this is very similar, which was, what are the roles of AI in 21st century pharmacy practice? Actually, maybe a little slightly different question. So, roles of AI in 21st century pharmacy practice. There is a great article by the National Academy of Medicine that was published in, I think, December 2020. And it was a focus on artificial intelligence in medicine. I don't remember why there was a big hype around AI back in like 2020. There was probably something that was going on. But I bring that up because National Academy of Medicine is like one of the de facto organizations of very, very intelligent people that I think most people in the world respect. And in that article, or rather, it was like a book chapter or something. It was probably like 300 something pages. They talk a lot about how do healthcare people, especially those that are not technical but have a lot of domain expertise, contribute to this world of AI, and do their roles look like? And I don't remember the specific terms they gave them, but a big part of what they were talking about was really helping to evaluate the AI that is put into practice. So if AI is predicting, like, if a patient should receive antibiotics for a serious infection, you should be involved in evaluating that AI algorithm before it is implemented, or even continuously monitoring it when it is implemented. But the big picture again is one of the biggest roles, I think, for anyone in healthcare is evaluating that these algorithms are doing what they should be doing, and making sure they are, safe, effective, things like that. And there's a whole concept of AI drift where these models would change over time. So I think it's continuous monitoring as well. So that was in 2020. I think when it comes to AI now, I'm not sure even how to answer the question, because generative AI is very still, I don't know, interesting to me, and it's very unknown. In the roles there, I feel like there is a lot of different roles you can do. Um, there's basically a lot of automation. Let's put it that way. But maybe a pragmatic way of looking at it is, I think, um, taking a step back, 2023 was a big year for just thinking about generative AI. 2024, I imagine, and a lot of people are also saying, is the year for applying generative AI. And so I think this is one of the years that we're going to see what some of these roles may be like, because a lot of people are exploring what can generative AI do, and what can it do specifically in my area, my industry, my practice, things like that. So I think this question will probably be better answered as time goes on. Okay, I will move on to the next question, which is, let's see, there's no name on this one, so I'm not going to say any names, but let me post it in here. This one should be pretty fun. The question is, oops, where'd it go? I am looking to attend some healthcare IT conferences this year. Any suggestions? So a couple probably, and I think I'm a little biased towards certain ones. I think there's one that's going to happen soon, so this one might be a little too late. The very first one is HIMSS, Healthcare Information and Management System Society. That is, I'm looking up right now, March 11th to 15th. Actually, I can maybe just share my screen so you can see what I'm looking at. There it is. Yeah, HIMSS, March 11th to 15th. I've never been, but in this world that I've been in, living more so, which is like more health IT, if anything, so many people talk about HIMSS, and I believe one of the biggest things about HIMSS is like the connectathons, and demonstrating that your applications work to connect different systems. Again, I've never been, but everyone talks about HIMSS. I know a lot of my colleagues in the past have been to HIMSS, so that's definitely one to always consider. Maybe it's too late for that one now, though. Another one, which I think also happened, is Vive. This happened already, and I think this perhaps can be on your radar in the future. I know a lot of very top leaders attended that, and one of the key themes that I saw coming out of that conference was just the use of wearables, which is super interesting. But that's another conference that you can consider. The classic ones is this one, AMIA, the annual symposium, November 9th to 13th in San Fran. This one is always really good. I think, let me see. Let me go with this one actually. AMIA is really good. I've been to AMIA once, and it's just a bunch of like healthcare, informatics, tech people. It's probably one of my favorite conferences to attend, and they have multiple other types of conferences in AMIA. Annual Symposium, I think, is the biggest one, but there's like a clinical informatics conference, and then some other ones. I've never attended the other ones. I've only been to Annual Symposium. And then here's another one I'll show you that should be pretty fun. This one is Dev Days. So I heard about this maybe like a year and a half ago or 2 years, and I would love to attend this at some point. This one is coming up June 10th to 13th in Minneapolis, which Minnesota is way too cold for my liking, but in the summer, it's probably one of the most beautiful places to be. Fire Dev Days, as it kind of describes here, it is a fire-focused event, and I've never been. What's shocking to me is how expensive it is. I wonder if I can find the tickets here. Let me see if I can show it, because I was looking at it the other day and I wanted to attend. Oh, great, I need to log in. I believe the cost of this was like $1,000 to $2,000, depending on if you're a member or not, for like what, 3 days, 4 days, 10, 11, 12, 13, 4 days ish. This is probably the most expensive conference I've seen, but there's a lot of artifacts that usually gets published online, like slide decks and things that come from this. I think it's a pretty top tier conference when it comes to learning about fire. And what I said earlier in one of the questions, fire is like taking over the health IT space quite a bit. You should know health IT. I mean, you should know fire if you're in health IT. And I think if you're a clinician or healthcare professional that has domain expertise and you know this is like you will really be able to set yourself apart. So Dev Days, that's probably one of the other ones that should be high on your radar. I think those are probably the main ones. Health IT conferences. Yeah, there's probably a lot of other ones. I am probably just biased to the ones that I'm aware of. So let's move on to another question. So let me hide this one and paste this next one. This question is less about like health IT stuff. Looks like this one's about MPH. So this one also does not have a name. So I'm just going to read the question. Question is, I had come across your YouTube video on MPH from Johns Hopkins. Wanted to understand the scope and the opportunities after the course, as I am planning to take a loan for the program. Can you please help me out? So this is a pretty like broad question. Scope and opportunities. I'll try to answer a couple of things with this, maybe 3 parts. So scope, opportunities, and loan. Okay. The first thing is scope. The scope is it's a part-time online program, which I'm assuming is what you're looking into. There's full-time or part-time. Full-time is, I believe, like close to a year, and it's pretty intense of a program. Part-time, which is the one I did, and it's flexible. It's like anywhere from like 1 class, which could be as little as like 1 credit, but all the way up until like 11 credits, like your typical part-time, full-time difference. So 1 credit to 9 credits. I took usually 3 credits, and the most I ever took was like I think 9 or 10 credits in 1 quarter. That's the other thing; it's by quarter. The scope, I was probably spending like 20 to 30 hours a week. Like my life in that part-time program, if you're talking about scope, the best advice I got was from one of my mentors, Caitlin from Tampa General. If you guys know her, I'm sure some of you do. She said, if you're doing this as a part-time program, whenever you're whatever full-time job you have to stop at 5 p.m. and then focus on school. So the scope of this for me was always at 5 p.m. I stopped, I took a break for like 30 minutes to an hour, and then the next couple hours was spent on school, with my weekends spent studying for tests, quizzes, and then doing homework assignments. And that's what it looks like for 2.5 years. There's a component of in-person stuff too, so you can go in person and go meet classmates, which is great. You can meet your professors, that's great. And 25% of my time was spent in different in-person activities where I took classes in DC, Baltimore, even Barcelona, which was really fun. So that's kind of the scope. Um, the opportunities is pretty good. I think this is in any network or brand that you attend. There is a huge opportunity for one, networking, and those networking opportunities turn into many other things, which I can share in just a bit. But one of the best things in terms of opportunities is definitely networking. What some of those things have turned into were, one, I got to author my first book chapter, largely due to the network that I had at Hopkins. I was given that opportunity. I think another opportunity was probably getting the opportunity to intern at the ONC, the Office of the National Coordinator for Health IT. You can probably do that at probably other schools as well. But perhaps that helped me get in. They didn't have an internship. I just cold emailed, and I cold emailed a lot of organizations, by the way, and said, hey, I am a part-time MPH student at Hopkins. I'd like to do an internship with you guys. And after, I think it was like 6 months of like back and forth, so I was able to do that. Perhaps the Hopkins name helped with that, but I got into that. So that was really nice. I think in probably, I don't know if there's other like really strong, tangible things to talk about, but I frequently attend their alumni events. They throw a lot of events in DC and Baltimore, and I meet a lot of really cool, talented individuals that always have different opportunities they're working on. And so I haven't capitalized on a lot of those, but they always come up. And I think being part of, again, it doesn't have to be Hopkins, it could be any type of other network. Being part of those networks really help with opportunities. So scope, opportunities. The last one is loans. I wanted to comment on that because the Hopkins program is really expensive. I believe when I took it, and it's probably similar now, it was $80,000 in total for just the tuition. So if you go attend in-person classes, you got to fly, you got to make money for the hotel, the food, all that kind of stuff. There's fees sometimes associated with different parts of the courses. For my capstone project, I ended up moving to DC for 3 months. And so I was paying double rent, if you will. I say all that because finances is a big part of it. So let me just break that down a little bit more. 80,000 was tuition costs, but I think they may be still offering it. They were giving everyone that was part of the part-time MPH program $20,000 scholarship. So technically it was 60,000 tuition, but my employer at the time, which was Mayo, was very generous and gave us 5,500 in educational stipend a year. And so that offset a little bit. And I think in total, because it took like 2.5 years, my tuition cost was like 40,000, maybe 35 to 40,000 total. And what I did, because I took out loans as well, but the moment I knew I wanted to pursue the MPH, I opened a 529 account, because a 529 is tax-free or tax advantage. It's tax-free if you pay for tuition. But I opened a 529 account, and by the time I started, I was taking out loans, but also contributing to this 529, because if I pay directly tuition, I'm paying with after-tax money, but if I pay with a 529, I'm earning money on it, and it also is tax-free. So there's a lot more advantage to open a 529 to do that. But I say that because loans are really hard. Having taken out a lot of loans myself, over 200,000. The moment I graduated at like 2.5 years, my 529, I timed it so that I can pay off my entire loan amount, which I think from Hopkins was 30 something thousand. The moment I graduated with that 529 account. So just be mindful. It's great to pursue further education, but it can be very expensive. Just take advantage of those other things. We have a question from Linda. Do you have any unsolicited financial advice as someone who has gone through pharmacy school? Um, Linda, question. Unsolicited financial advice. I think the best advice is simply what not to do, maybe. So when I went to pharmacy school, everyone told me that I'm going to make a lot of money after graduating, which is not untrue. Average salary for pharmacists in the US is like 125 or 130 a year. It's true. But with that rationale, they said to max out your loans and spend like there's no tomorrow during pharmacy school. I did that for the first 2 years, and it's probably the worst advice I've ever received, and would not recommend that to anyone. Pharmacy school, and rather any schooling you go through where you have to take out loans, take out as minimum as possible. I came out with $135,000 in loans and was required to pay, I think it was like $850 a month in just interest. Yeah, you might be making 120 after taxes. That's like 80. And what that trickled down to was like I could barely afford a lot because even throwing $1,000 in loans meant only 120 towards the principal at the time. And I think my projected payoff was like 20 years or 30 years or something like that. So take out as minimum loans as possible. And also shout out to Linda, who's my girlfriend. So thanks for that question. We only have 1 more minute left. Let me go through. I'll try one more question, and then we will end this live stream. The last question here is a fun one, because I see HL7 in there. The question, also no name, so I'm just going to say the question, which is: do you know any courses that's helpful for those wanting to learn about HL7, especially for those non-technical who has no idea about HL7? Okay, so I will always plug HL7 because that was some of the courses that I went through personally when I first started learning. And I can share it on the screen if I can grab this 1 second. HL7 education courses. And they have a ton of courses, by the way. Let me see if I can get to their stuff. Here we go. This is HL7. If you go to their training tab, I believe it's in here. Oh, actually, this is different. HL7 has a bunch of resources because obviously this is actually no, I don't know at what point I was trying to make, but basically they have a lot of good training courses on all the different standards that you would care about in health IT. So V2, which is like probably the most used all around the world, V3, which is barely used, CDA, which is always used pretty often, and of course FIRE, and because HL7 created these standards. But I think I forgot your question already. I'm assuming you're talking about FIRE in this case. So if not, that's okay too. If you go to, I think, is it Education in Demand? Yeah, maybe it's here. Basically, all in to say there is a bunch of courses by HL7 is where I would go. I thought there was something. Oh, it's over here. 1 second. I can't access this piece. Oh, there it is. It was over here to the right. I took 2 courses when I first started, so I'm gonna recommend those as FYI. There is a HL7 Fundamentals course, which is the one you see here. It teaches you V2, CDA, and Fire, like an intro to Fire. It's very helpful if you're like very new to the health IT world. Your question was specifically about non-technical. It is very technical, and I think it was a big pain, but I'm recommending it because if you want to learn interoperability, if you want to learn Fire, if you want to learn HL7, anything, I feel like you have to go through and put yourself in that pain. You learn very technical things. They say so many acronyms. They do not abstract away any of the difficulties, and you're expected to just, well, let me put it this way. The audience for HO7 usually is very technical. So there isn't um a layer of abstraction that removes that. If you take these courses, expect it to be technical and expect to be Googling a lot, but they are the author of these standards, so they do have a lot of education. I took this one, the HL7 Fundamentals, and then I also took the HL7. Where is it? I don't think I see it in here. Oh, here it is. The HL7 Fire Fundamentals course, which was one of the most helpful courses I took. It was helpful also because I took the previous one, which broke me into some of the technical pieces that helped when I took this one. You have to be very familiar with using integrated development environments or IDEs, using and creating XML and JSON files, being familiar with that, and then just these like technical things that they reference all the time, which is very frustrating. But all that to say, HL7 is a wealth of resources. I still take a lot of courses from them. I actually just started taking their HL7 this course, which just started, as you see, like a couple days ago, because I plan to get Fire certified later this year. Very technical. I know your question is not about technical. I think the courses, I don't actually know if there's any that really exist. The other 2 things I'll say, and I'll start wrapping this live stream up, is one, the best course I've seen so far. It's not really a course. It was a free webinar by the CDC. It was like a 3-hour webinar, one for Fire 101 and another for Fire 102. They were the best, hands down, uh, learning materials for Fire I have ever seen, because it was very non-technical and slowly progressed. And I wouldn't even say it was like super technical. It was very, very, very helpful, and one of the best things I would recommend to anyone. They probably have it out somewhere publicly. Just search for it. CDC Fire 101, and I think it was produced. Not I think I know it was produced by Miter. So check that out. I would highly, highly recommend it. They did 2 of them, 101 and 102. The other one I'll say is Dev Days, Fire Dev Days, the thing I showed earlier, which I can show again. Fire Dev Days. There's a bunch of education that you can find all about them. I know it's very focused on Fire, but I assume your question was about Fire. You can find a lot of educational material there, and I believe they are a little better in terms of like abstracting away the technical details, or at least giving you like a bridge to go in between and learn those technical concepts. So that is it. And then since there's one more question on live stream, I'll take that live stream and then we're going to end it there. The question is, let me see if I can highlight your. I am in my final, there's Ellie, final year of pharmacy school in Ghana. I want to practice in the US. What advice would you give on the path to take to achieve this? Well, congrats on being in your final year. That's pretty exciting to come out and graduate soon. I think practicing in the US is pretty challenging right now. And then let's be objective about this. Let me see if I can find the best thing I refer to when it comes to like job market for any industry in the US, at least as a baseline, is the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, because you're asking about the US. This is pharmacists. So pharmacists, I haven't looked at this in a while. 2022 pay, that's actually pretty high, 132 median. There's 334,000. Job Outlook says it's 3% right now. Expected to grow 8,700. Work environment. Let's see if it shows anything else that's helpful in terms of resources. So the expectation is that pharmacists, a lot of this is going to come from pharmacists that are retiring. Let's see what they do, how to become one, job outlook. Let's see what they say here. So demand, so what you probably want to do is look at the demand. Hospitals in some hospital settings, so hospitals and clinics, they expect pharmacists to expand beyond traditional drug dispensing duties, be integrated into medication management and other patient care services. Many pharmacists work in retail settings, which include independent and chain, as well as supermarket, mass merchandiser. Fewer pharmacists are expected in these settings as the industry consolidates and more people fill their prescriptions online or by mail. Yeah, so I think in terms of advice, just looking at this, one, I would expect if you're looking at retail and community settings or independent pharmacies, I think the trend over the last few years is that there's less and less pharmacists, or how do you best say it? It's a difficult market if you want to practice in a community independent setting, is one. A lot of that I would say is a variety of factors: mail order, automation, technology, PBMs, just the way the healthcare system works here makes that very challenging. So, if one piece of advice I would suggest is like looking at other alternative places to practice. If you want to practice in the US, that's not one of those settings. You can if that's what you like, but just know that it's a um, tough market. Based on the BLS that you see right here, demand is projected to be in hospitals and clinics. So if you want to be more competitive in this case, in the US, it's anecdotally much more competitive if you have a residency. So I don't know if you are planning on pursuing a residency, but if not, that's one way you can increase your competitiveness for landing a hospital and clinic position. The other thing to say, because you're coming from a different country, is that look at companies that you're interested in and be aware of how they view or allow or not allow, rather, uh, non-US citizen practices. Uh, there's usually a path to doing that, because you have to do like a foreign pharmacy practice license uh, type of pathway, which I'm not very familiar with because I did everything in the US. But there's a couple of other foreign pharmacists that have came over to the US and they've went through that pathway. I think that's one of the most challenging areas and probably not talked about. And so if you truly are looking to come into the US, maybe the very first thing to look at is how do you get licensed to even practice in the US? Because everything I just said doesn't really matter unless you can even get licensed to practice in the US. So maybe that's the very first advice. Learn how you can navigate that process. Otherwise, you can't even practice. And I don't have the expertise to comment on where to go for that, but hopefully that's kind of helpful. Let's look at this. Kevin. Kevin says, I'm seeking I'm seeking to be a Pokemon master next year. Which should be my first Pokemon? Squirtle, Bulbasaur, or Charmander? If I answer that question, I'm pretty sure I will lose a lot of subscribers and followers. So I'm gonna have to plead the fifth, or rather, I would My favorite is probably Pikachu. So I would definitely go with Pikachu. All right, I'm gonna end the live stream. I'm a little over right now. So thanks guys for tuning in. Hopefully these are helpful. Be sure to submit your questions if you have future ones to Brian K. Fung. I'm gonna type it out one more time. briankfung.com/AMA, and then I will answer your questions next time, or you can just tune in live and just ask your questions there. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. I will see you next time.